Okay, we're trying to get connected on Instagram. Bear with us just 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. We're trying to get all the technology up and going. I think we have connected on Instagram, so we are live on Instagram right now, which is a great thing. All right, so welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rates and Lanes podcast. I'm your host, Rico Muhammad. My good friend right there with the similar haircut as mine. That's my good friend, good pal, co-host of the show, Mr. Chuck Snow. If you guys and girls would do us a huge favor, it helps us out tremendously. We only ask one thing of you. Please, please, please like, share, subscribe, comment. All of those things gets us out to a bigger audience, gets the show out to more people, and we definitely could use your assistance with doing so. It doesn't cost you one dime. We won't be sending you any emails or anything like that. But if you hit the bell notification, you will get notified anytime we post new content to the channel as well. And so with that being said, I want to welcome my co-host, Mr. Chuck Snow, to the show. Good evening, Chuck. How are you?
We're doing great, Rico. How about you, buddy?
Man, it has been one hell of a busy week, and I'm talking on all fronts, especially I think I sent you over the press conference from the Secretary Duffy and the administrator. And man, it seems as if there definitely is. I've been on record as saying that Sean Duffy and the new guard at the FMCSA has been the most consequential person in that position since I have been driving trucks.
Since I got to tell you, I haven't seen anything like this since all the craziness happened. And I was, again, we were a very regulated industry. This was a tight industry. It was, unless you got in the way I did through the gypsy way, but it was in order to get authority and stuff years ago, till Jimmy Carter got rid of it. He had his reasons, and they were the right reasons at the time. But to take an industry that was so regulated and just blow the top and the sides off it and let it go to, as Secretary Duffy said, let it go to hell in a handbasket, basically.
Just rot. Yeah, just rot. That was the direct quote.
That's his quote, and he's right. This guy is by far the most consequential person we've ever had in that chair that I can ever remember. He's making some great changes. He's not playing politics. He's just getting it done.
Yeah, so before we get too far gone, let me circle back around, a little bit of housekeeping.
Okay.
Jump into the current fuel index. We are showing that the price of diesel, the national average price of diesel fuel, is sitting at $3.71 per gallon. That is up 2 cents from the previous week. We are also showing new spot market rate information. These rates that we share with you guys are the national spot market rates. This has the line haul included with fuel surcharge. So this would be an all-in rate. So we're showing for dry vans that it has moved down by 2 cents per mile, showing an average for dry vans at $2.42 per mile nationally. Moving down to the flatbed segment of the report, we are showing that flatbed has no change week over week. It's showing an average of $2.70 per mile. And going down to reefers, we're starting to see a little bit of a decline on the reefer rate. Reefers are showing that they have moved down by 3 cents per mile since last week at an average of $2.90 per mile, which is still a very, very far cry from what it was. But the rates are still holding very strong, especially in the reefer segment of the transportation modes. And so circling back around to what we were talking about, FMCSA, they came out, not sure how many people, if you didn't get a chance to catch the press conference, I'm going to see if there's a way that I might be able to link that to a future show. But on February 20th, Secretary Duffy and the administrator, man, I forget his name. I forget the
Yes.
DOT.
Hang on, see if I can get it. Hang on, Rico. Keep going, and I'll try to get his.
Yeah, but he, the administrator is an actual former. Um, he had something to do with the DOT down in Florida, if memory serves me correctly. So we have actual truck people, and like you said, um, we have some people that are actually making moves to try. Administrator Bars. That's his Bars. Bars is
Yes.
his last name. Um, but we got people that are actually making strides to make some moves and do some things to kind of try to help clean up the industry a little bit more. And it is long overdue. Um, so they set out a lot of things. A lot of things they came out and they set forth in this press conference. One of the things that they have said that they're getting ready to really start to crack down on, and starting to make sure that they tighten up the enforcement, is on the so-called chameleon carriers.
Yeah.
And that has been a huge thorn in our side in the industry, because you got people that are out here trying to operate their trucking in their trucking companies the correct way, and you got some people that are just doing things willy-nilly all across the board. There's nothing off limits. Got their own set of ELDs and just running raggedy. I mean, truly the wild west. And whenever
Yeah.
the heat cracks down on them, it's no big deal. We'll just shut this company down and we'll transfer it right over to another one. And you got people that are showing they have done investigations on these things, and you got one company, one person with like hundreds of DOT numbers,
Yeah.
uh, and they're just swapping them out. And of course, everybody's seen by now the videos that have been going around on social media with the people at the truck stops, literally changing DOT placards right in the parking lot.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. And those are the people that aren't trying to build a trucking business. They're in it for a quick, they're in it for a quick buck. And God knows what else they'll do.
Right. And so it's encouraging to hear and see. Of course, things we would like to see things happen a lot quicker, a lot faster. However, at least something's being done. And
Yeah.
I think that a lot of this crackdown definitely is a direct. Uh, you're starting to see the rates have a direct correlation to, now we're starting to see some of the bad actors get out of the way and say, okay, well, maybe we can't keep pulling this thing off in the trucking industry the way that we've been doing it. And I'm encouraged to see some of the changes that are coming down the pike. There are a lot more things that need to be done, but at least we have something going in the right direction, because for years and years, like Secretary Duffy said in his press conference, we have been suffering. The trucking industry has really been suffering from just a neglect. It I thought that, my opinion, and I'm on record for this as well, I was of the opinion that, once we got ELDs mandated, I wasn't a big proponent of it, but once we got it coming, it was a mandate that everyone had to go to ELDs. I was like, okay, well, maybe this could be a good thing. I tried to see the silver lining in it. I tried to say, well, hey, now we might possibly start getting fairly compensated for our detention efforts. All of those things, since now we have, there shouldn't be any qualms or gripes about whether or not you made it there on time or where you are, because now we have satellite positioning and all that stuff. And man, at the time, I thought that you would hear different stories. I was ignorant to the fact that a lot of the ELD that you could actually self-certify, and people built back doors into these things.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and so with all this technology, man, there was an old song back in the day, say, with all this technology, who needs to steal? I mean,
It's true. You know what? That's exactly what happened. And there's some great systems out there. There's a lot of real bad ones, and this has been going on since they started.
Yeah. So it's been. I'm encouraged. Um, a lot of people have been. I was having a hard conversation with my family and some other people because I was like, man, this is. It has been a really tough 3-4 years for everyone in the trucking industry, and I was, having a kind of a heart to heart, and was like, man, if we can't really see any much more improvement by the end of this year, I think we might have to find something else to do. I'm being optimistic about because I love trucking. I enjoy trucking, but at the same time, we're not doing this. We're not a charity. I mean, we do these businesses and we run this as a for-profit business, and for far too long, um, it's been a real sad state of affairs for the rates and everything and the living that they said that we had a driver shortage. That's one of the things that they kept trying to harp
Yeah,
on. We
the
have a
ATA
driver
kept
shortage,
pushing that narrative. You're right.
and it's never been a driver shortage. There's never been a driver shortage in my humble estimation. It's just been a driver pay situation. If you pay enough money and you make it worth people's while, people will flock to this industry, and which is exactly what happened when COVID happened and people heard, oh man, you're making money over there doing that thing. We were already starting to be as a private conversation that we had early in the week, Chuck. We had already started seeing it was the wheels that already started
Yeah.
being in motion for the collapse of the industry. However, during the COVID times, man, we were getting great rates. Everybody, things were looking up, and we were everybody's hero. And with the influx in the popular, it got really popular on social media. Everybody was talking about, oh, well,
You're rich, buy a truck.
get rich. I can buy a truck and it's passive income and this, that, and the third. And trucking is by far anything but passive. So
That's an understatement. It it's not an easy industry. It is the I think trucking and farming are the two hardest industries. They're very similar. I've said it on this show before. And
extremely competitive.
yes, and the reward versus risk. You take so much risk going out there. Blow a steering tire. It's close to $1,000, and you really need to buy two.
Right.
That's a lot of money. And that's just one component of that truck. And so much stuff can happen out there that's not your fault. It's happened to you, or some guy plows into you. You weren't even there. I think you were on holidays when somebody plowed into
Yeah.
your trailer that
Yeah.
time. Okay, you were probably not even in the country, and you were a victim. So these things happen. And if that was your only trailer, you were out of business until you found another reefer.
Right.
And I think at that time they were a little harder to get than they are now. So these are the risks that we take. For God's sakes, we got to get paid for our risk. The reward needs to be worth it. And lately, it's starting to get a little better now, thank God, because now people are going to start making some of the money they lost.
So if anybody missed out on the press conference, I just want to touch on the highlights of some of the things that they said. The new rule making that they came out with. They're ending self-certification for entry-level driver training schools with the CDL mills. They've already closed, I think, something like 700 plus CDL schools, which has been a flaw in the system because one of the things, and I think Craig Fuller on his podcast, and they made a great point. They kind of pointed to he had got a story about ICE was pulling up in truck stops up in Arkansas or somewhere, I believe he said it was, and they were arresting truck drivers, and they have the administration has the high ground on that if they're going to go after immigration and trucking, you're not going to have people crying in the streets about truck drivers getting arrested at truck stops. For whatever reason, people still kind of look at truck drivers as second-class citizen whenever they're not expecting or wanting something off of the truck that driver is delivering. But I think that definitely the self-certification CDL schools, that's definitely, we need to have some kind of, there needs to be some type of
But there's going to be bars of like barriers of entry. Not anybody can produce
right,
build a system. Not anybody should be able to operate a trucking school. There has to be a criteria. All these things need criteria. Load brokers, same thing. You know, uh, Duffy said that he's going to close down all these bad brokers. Well, please do it because I think the industry is fraught with it.
right. And so the next point, they said that they are revamping the motor system, the federal motor carrier registration system, into a rigorous verification and identity matching platform. He said that one of the things that he said that for years and years and years, um, the industry needs to be modern. There needs to be modernization that takes place in the registration system, and that's 100% correct. That's all of, like I said, with all the chameleon carriers and all this stuff. Some of this stuff is very easy to catch if you just start connecting just a few dots. You can very easily see who are the bad actors that are doing these things when it comes to the multiple DOT numbers, the officers, so on and so forth.
Yeah. You know what? It's high time all this gets cleaned up because it has ruined the industry. That's why we've had such a hard time the last few years. Um, and there has to be barriers to entry and clean. It's got to be clean because we are hauling other people's goods. And the other thing I want to add to this, and uh, Administrator Duffy, he said something. Secretary Duffy, he said something. He said, you know, he was talking about the drivers being licensed by the state, because, and they only have so much power federally because it's a state function. But
Right.
my idea, and you know what, if Mr. Duffy is listening, please think of this. If there is a way that truck drivers could be licensed federally like pilots, that would clean up a lot of stuff.
Yeah, well, one of the things in the other bullet point that they have here, I'm getting to. I'll get to it here after this one. Enhancing procedures for suspending or revoking federally approved and non-compliant carriers or schools. The next one is requiring state motor vehicle departments to conduct all CDL testing, so thereby eliminating the third party system where
Yeah.
you can get tested by a third party, someone that is not even an employee of the state, but they have third party credentials to be able to say that someone has been properly trained and qualified to operate a motor vehicle. They are eliminating that. Adding qualification and testing requirements for brokers doing registration. So that's one of the other points that they, like you were saying, closing down the bad brokers.
Yeah. Um, because nobody needs them. And they're also, which I'm really excited about, they're going to start checking out the schools and checking out the states that are providing CDL testing. They're going to send in their own undercover guys. That's what it sounds like, to make sure that people are compliant and that they're not accepting bribes and all the rest of it. They're cleaning it up.
And so one of the things that they definitely needs to happen is there needs to be more manpower given to the FMCSA when it comes to having inspectors and people to come out and actually the enforcement arm of the FMCSA. It needs to be more. They don't have nowhere near enough qualified individuals working in the agency to kind of help clean up the backlog. I mean, I think you have more carriers being registered per day filing for authority than they have inspectors or whatever on staff to even investigate them.
That's an easy. You know what? I know how to, Nico. I know how to fix that one really easy. You have a cost to get that license. The cost covers the inspector's wage. It's solved. That would solve the problem. It doesn't have to be huge, but at least there's a. And that guy that has 100 of them, maybe he doesn't have 100 anymore because you got to pay for each one, and you have to have an interview. I
Hmm.
know when we got our authority, uh, for to operate out of Illinois. After the first year, I personally had to go for an interview with the manager of that division, the director with the state of Illinois. Apparently, they're not doing that as much now.
Right. And so another thing that happened this week as well is the reversal of tariffs when it comes to certain things still have some tariffs on them, but for the most part, the reversal of tariffs. So Chuck, I'm going to kind of throw this off into your purview. Tell us about, is this going to have any effect on as far as improving conditions for you guys up in Canada? Because I understand that those tariffs that were issued were fairly punitive to you guys.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it's not. I don't believe it's going to affect steel, aluminum, and lumber, and those are three of our bigger exports. So I don't think because there have been some tariffs on. Well, lumber has been going on for years, and I believe steel and aluminum to some degree there has been some sort of a tariff on it, but they raised it. I don't think it's going to help those mothballed plants or anything else at this point. I don't believe it will. It may help some of the other manufacturers. And it may also, now I haven't heard about this, but there was, you know how we had this law before anything under $800 you could ship to the US from anywhere and they would clear it. It was automatically cleared. I don't know what's going to happen with that because that put a lot of people out of business, small shippers that were shipping one-offs.
Uh, I'm I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, either am I, because that's one of the things Mr. Trump went after. And the other thing that's happened in the last week, there's a bridge that's almost completed. The Gordie Howe Bridge is supposed to be completed this year, linking Windsor, Ontario to Detroit, Michigan. And you had sent me something last night that I viewed, and part of it was an interview with Warren Buffett, who did own part of the Ambassador Bridge at one point for a very short period of time. And if I'm not mistaken, and the Maroon family had gone to Donald Trump and said, listen, you got to stop this bridge. It's going to kill our 95-year-old bridge that was built before they had tractor trailers. Well, yeah, it is. And I think should have been mothballed a long time ago because, there's 10,000 trucks a day crossing that bridge. It can't keep up with the capacity. And the state of Michigan and the Ford and I believe it Ford and GM were suffering because of the backlog at the bridge. It was costing them, and Canada paid. I don't know if you watched the whole thing. They said 6 million, then 9 million. It's 9 million Canadian, 6 million US. We paid to have the bridge built. We put up all the money to have this bridge between our two countries.
Right.
That's the sort of relationship we had with America.
Right.
Started. And Michigan is so upset, and their Democrat and Republican state politicians have gotten together to work together towards getting this bridge back going because apparently Trump put a kibosh to it last week.
And so, yeah, it's interesting. We live interesting times that we living in, ladies and gentlemen. But I do believe, with all of the things that are coming down the pike, with the ELP situation, with the non-domicile kind of getting our hands around this non-domicile situation, the safety issues that are concerning. Also, the other thing that they said about during the press conference is that moving forward, that the CDL testing is always going to be in English. It can't be done in a different language, which I think is kind of asinine as to why they would allow the CDL test to be taken in a different language anyway, when you already have a law on the books that you must understand and be able to read the English language in order to be able to obtain a CDL license.
Rico, how could you and I drive trucks in a place like Ukraine, Russia, Pakistan, India, you name it, if we can't read the language? How would we know that's our exit? How would we know that's where trucks go. How would we know if we can't read? I don't understand it. How you can do the job?
Yeah, you don't understand. You can't read road signs, a litany of different things, and it's crazy how we have this is not an overnight sensation. This thing has gotten this bad. This thing got off the rails years and years ago, and like I said, it came uh, from both parties, Republican and Democrat.
Oh yeah.
Whenever one got in there, it seems as if the appointments for that position were just somebody that was just filling the seat, so to speak. They really didn't have any intentions on really getting in and getting down to the people that are in the industry and figuring out how can we improve or make things better. I remember sitting in on a couple of different listening sessions at a couple of different events, and it was just, it was crazy. It was crazy because it seems they would show some concern, but after the meeting was over with, they would just like back to Washington. The hell with
Because they were in there, you know what? They were a warm bomb in a cold seat. And they were
mm-hmm.
in there while they were in there, and they knew damn well when they got out of there, there'd be something else, okay, if their party was elected. And nobody took it serious up until now. And it's actually, it has been neglected since 1980, ever since deregulation, unfortunately. That's when
Right.
it started under Jimmy Carter. It's 46 years ago that this whole thing went sideways.
And now, I heard a couple of people talking, and everybody was talking about how we shouldn't be asking for more government intervention. And to a degree, I agree with that. But on the other hand, there has to be some government oversight on some of the things. I'm not a big proponent of a whole lot of government interfering into the affairs. I, however, will say this: history is best qualified to show us, um, you know, lessons from the past.
100%.
Every industry that has, we say we want to say rugged capitalism and everything else, it'll wash itself out, it'll wring itself out. And whenever we do that, whenever we allow quote unquote industries to kind of self-regulate, that they'll self-police or whatever, you can't ever underestimate the next person's greed. And that has always been the thing that has always been the fly in the ointment when you come to the self-regulation. There has to be some type of um, laws and regulations with some teeth behind it to keep people in line, because we've seen this in the insurance industry, we've seen it in the banking industry, we've seen it in all across the board. That's how we got into the whole too big to fail. We've crossed this lexicon a few times, and we have to reel this thing in some kind of way. And like I said, I'm not a big proponent of the old saying that I guess was famously coined by Ronald Reagan. I'm here from the government. I'm here to help. I understand. Uh, I get that, but at the same time, there has to be. I feel like there still has to be some type of regulation in place to kind of keep things, because even with TIA, I'll pick on them for a second. There's supposed to be a code of ethics for brokers, and just by going by all of the information that we have, you have brokers out there that were booking loads on trucks that they know were solo drivers, that they knew they were fudging their laws. They had to know, because there's no way physically possible, that they could do some of the dispatches that some of these drivers were doing, and for
Right.
and for bottom level rates. So that right there shows, if you're asking me, that shows your moral. There's a moral glitch there, because you didn't give a damn about the motoring public or anybody else. You just cared about the bottom line as to how much money you were able to clear off of those particular loads, and you found you were able to manipulate the system and be able to load that on a carrier that didn't give a damn as well. So there has to be, in my humble estimation, there has to be some consequence for that. Everybody in that chain owns a bit of responsibility to that, from the carrier to the driver to the broker to the shipper. And I think that the shippers have to hold the brokers accountable, and so on and so forth. The brokers have to make sure that they're vetting carriers properly. Carriers got to make sure that they're vetting brokers properly. And until we there has to be an impartial. The government has to stand as a referee to call balls and strikes on all of this.
100%. But I will say something. I'm not a guy for government intervention in free enterprise. However, look what happened. We had the government intervene in trucking recently and start cleaning up the rotting mess that we've been living in. And all of a sudden, you know what? All of a sudden, instead of $1.40 a mile for a reefer, you're at $2.90 or something. So how bad is the government? I think they're doing a damn good job this time.
Yeah. But like I say, it's because we once again the greed was allowed to take over, and you had people that were willing to do whatever it takes. You got people that are willing to accept bottom slave labor rates to do a job and it just kind of suppressed everything else. And unfortunately, you got people, like I said, there were many brokers. There were on many professional websites, LinkedIn, so on and so forth. A lot of brokers. There was the rolling joke going around about, strong solo Sergey.
It's not the seriousness. Talk to the people, and I'll say their name: C.H. Robinson, Eden Prairie, Minnesota. That famous crash that I think they finally got off the hook for the $52 million, but it still cost them tens of millions of dollars in legal fees.
Well, back during our conversation the other day when we were talking, I was ignorant to the fact at the time, but I think that this all, when you start connecting the dots, I think that this all kind of spun off of that. I remember back when I very first started seeing attorneys across the nation advertising about truck accidents. I remember, and I used to get, I kind of took it personal. I'm like, man, the way these folk wheelers be out here driving, y'all talking about truck drivers. But this thing, that's how long that this thing has been going on. I don't want to get off because we kind of halfway through, we about ready to put a bow on this episode, and that may be a discussion for another time. But all of this stuff is intertwined, and the dots are connected. Now that you start to look back, the dots are really being connected, and it's really when you look back and you start really digging up and unearthing some of the stuff, it's a damn shame what has been allowed to happen to this industry.
Yeah, all of it. You know what? I wish to God people stopped using the industry as a toilet bowl.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they've done. The lawyers have done it. These people that have come in and chameleon carriers, crooked brokers, frauds. That's another thing Duffy's going after is the fraudsters. About time.
Yeah, I mean, you got people in other countries that are really affecting our supply chain.
Can you imagine you and I going over to some place we can't even pronounce and stealing? Like, come on.
Well, I mean, the sad part about it is, hell, they're like I said, with all this technology, hell, they're not even in this country. They're over there.
In a cave somewhere in some town, some city we couldn't even pronounce.
So, yeah, but like I said, I am very optimistic about the outlook for this year. I'm very encouraged. I've been saying since October of last year that I was starting to see, me personally, as an anecdote, I was starting to see rates starting to kind of go up a little bit. So I'm really encouraged. I'm really excited for produce season coming up. I'm really excited to see how this thing is going to shake out with produce season, because, man, if we're seeing the rates that we're seeing now, boy,
Don't tell me government intervention is not a good thing, because sometimes you need the government to enforce
To
law.
clean this crap up. Yeah.
Yeah, this thing has been lawless for 46 years, and now we're getting some laws back, and it'll be good again. It's never going to be an easy business. It's not
No,
going to be a
no,
get
but
rich. Nobody gets rich quick in trucking.
absolutely. And you knew that it was something was definitely wrong when you got major, very good operators, the Heartland Expresses, things that for years and years and years have been able to be shown profited. And all of a sudden, you mean to tell me good operators like that can't make a profit anymore? They all of a sudden forgot how to run a trucking company?
Well, they know how
And
to run it. It's
and and
just
and it had nothing to do, it has everything to do with allowing the industry to get oversaturated with people and companies that don't have nowhere near the best interest for this thing. You got people that were shirking every law under the books.
level playing field, Rico. If you've got to be compliant, I have to be compliant.
Exactly,
There's no way one of us does and the other one doesn't. Not
exactly.
fair.
And so, to see this thing starting to get somewhat cleaned up, I'm encouraged. Hopefully, it continues, and I'm hoping that everybody out there is starting to see their bottom lines increase. And the thing about it is, this time around, when we get when the things are in the favors of us as carriers, I'm going to get on my soapbox for a minute, and we're going to wrap this thing up.
Go ahead.
We gotta start making sure that we are getting the things that we are aptly due, even on the spot market rates. It's one thing if you someone a broker that you have a relationship with, great, and if they look out for you, great. But if not, we need to start making sure that we are putting in and not just settling for when we're negotiating on these contracted rates, that we make sure that we put something in there for our detention, because everybody still complains about not getting paid for detention and things of this nature. We got to make sure that we are putting that explicitly, what we're expecting for detention, what we're expecting for layovers, and pricing everything accordingly. Right now, we have to start to crawl back all of the stuff that we gave up over these past few years. And unless we do that as a collective, we're not going to be able to get back or get to a position where we should have been for all along. We for too many years, trucking has always just kind of gave away so much stuff. There's so much labor that we give away for free. We have to start to make sure that we are charging accordingly for everything that we are worth, or we don't have anybody else to blame but ourselves. We have an opportunity now to kind of correct these things, to make some things right. It's on us as the carriers and the people in the industry to kind of hold the line to make sure that we are getting what we are properly due.
If you don't charge for what you're doing, you go broke. It's real easy. We've seen how many thousands of carriers go bankrupt because they didn't get paid for the services they rendered.
Great point. Great point, Jay. Yeah, now you're starting. You're exactly right. Now you're starting to see more and more brokers talking about building where before everything was strictly transactional.
Yeah.
Strictly transactional. They didn't even. You could go to a broker and say, "I'm looking to build relationships," and they'll listen to you for a little while, but as soon as they were able to get a truck for $1.25 a mile, and you've been charging
You know
a
what?
fair rate, the
I
hell with
think
you.
good brokers, though, do value. They understand that they can't sell from empty shelves, that they need good carriers. And I think a stronger market is going to allow everybody to do better.
Absolutely. Well, um, I'm looking at the time, Chuck. It was about, like I said, we want to go ahead and try to keep these things a little bit shorter. We don't want to go to full hour,
No,
but we're pushing right up against 40 minutes right now. So before we get out of here, any closing remarks?
you know what? Just everybody, things are getting a little bit better. Like Rico said, don't give it away. When you're taking that load, send them a sheet of, listen, I'll do the load. I'll give you 2 free hours after that. It's $100 an hour, whatever you're going to charge. And please sign it and return it. And you are in position to do that right now.
Two unpaid, unsolicited. I'm gonna plug two things and then we're gonna get out of here.
Okay.
If you're not familiar, Freightways has a sonar app. It's available. I think it's $10 a month. So if you're not familiar with rates, I'm gonna see if I can pull it up here. They have a little app where you can put your for dry vans, reefers, and for flatbeds. You can put your city and state in there, hit return, and it'll pull back information from sonar. Sonar is pretty, Freightways and DAT are kind of, they're kind of both in the information business.
Right, they're data, yeah.
And they both have some very, very good information. I have the fortunate enough to have both, and so DAT's material, their information is more of a historical data. The sonar information is a little bit more aggressive in trying to be future facing, to try to think about things that are coming down the pike in the future. But that's one tool at your disposal. If you're not sure about pricing, you have something there to help you price. Also, when it comes to pricing, of course, you want to make sure that you're using your cost per mile. You want to be able to know what your costs are. You need to understand that. But at the same time, the going rates in a particular market, every lane has its own rate. That's why we call this the Race and Lane Show. We kind of started out talking. This was one of the things that we kind of started out way before the Freightways or any of that stuff even got started. Every lane has its own rate. You need to understand what those rates are in that lane, and understand. And what I'm saying by the solidarity as us as carriers, man, don't go in there. I understand if you don't have a truck payment and things of that nature. And I understand the competitive nature, but man, don't go in there cutting out the rate from a lane that if the lane is paying $5 per mile, don't go in there with a $2 per mile rate.
No, you know what? Don't leave money on the table. It's really easy. And because your truck is paid for, it doesn't have a warranty, and it's going to cost you money to keep it on the road. So where you weren't making in payments, you're making in repairs. And you know what? If you're not putting money away to rebuild that motor, the transmission, the complete drivetrain, a radiator, everything else, it's tires, brakes, it's all the same, guys. Doesn't matter if it's a payment, it's the same amount of money. Don't give it away.
Absolutely.
That money to rebuild that motor.
So that was my little unsolicited plug for both DAT and for sonar. If you don't have one of those tools and you've been kind of thinking about how can I don't know if I'm getting a good rate or not, that's just something else to kind of put a little tool in your toolbox to kind of make sure that you are doing a good average as far as what those lanes should be paying.
Yeah, you want both so you can compare and get the medium in between the two. That's
Absolutely.
why you need both. And $10 a month, if it's going to break you, you shouldn't be in this business.
Yeah, $10 a month is peanuts, and it's like I say, it's right there on your iPhone. It's a lot more information that's in the app as well. But I thought that was a very neat little thing. They call it the Sonar, or Blue to Blue is what I think it's called in the App Store. But go check those guys out. That's a great little tool for you guys to have. So with that being said, I want you guys to continue to stay safe out there, stay healthy, keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise. And until next week, God bless you and good night.
Catch you on the flip flop. God bless. Good night. Be safe.
Good show, Chuck.